Hi everyone, this is Jay Ballenberger. I'm an instruction and reference librarian, and I'm going to be walking you through our first of 4 series of um, research workshops. This one we call Trailhead to Knowledge, and it's about planning your research route. Um, so to get going, we're going to be talking about the research cycle through the entire series, all 4 workshops. So today's, we'll talk about a couple of these, but I just want you to see the entire research cycle. And this is kind of a generic research cycle. You see we start with a topic development. That gets, it's very iterative, all these things. That's why we have these circles that kind of go back on each other. It's not going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, you're done. A lot of times it's going to be step 1, step 2, back to step 1, maybe up to 3, let's go back to 1 again, take it to 3 again, and maybe back to 4, refine a little bit, cite our stuff, but go back because we need to brainstorm. You get the point. It kind of is, it's cyclical, it goes back and forth, but this is kind of a generic process that it should go through for most types of research. Today we will focus on these areas: topic development, brainstorming, testing your topic, and refining. Refining is going to be something that we do often. And we can say to some degree that we'll be using the evaluate portion in this part as well, but we're going to definitely focus on that a little bit more in another workshop. Speaking of which, fact or fallacy, or how not to be fooled, will be on September 26th from 2 to 3 p.m. in the event space here in the library, and on September 27th, which is a Wednesday, from 11 to noon. So if you can make it to one of those, that'd be great. If not, we'll also make the recording available and you can view it that way as well. The third workshop we'll be doing is called Beg, Borrow, and Cite, and the Ethics of Information. So those are a little bit later in October. Again, those are going to be the Tuesday and Wednesday of that week, and we're going to really focus on citing and again, like all the ethics that go behind working with information. And finally, we're going to be bringing you Dazzle Them with Brilliance, presentation skills, again on a Tuesday and Wednesday of that mid-November, those mid-November weeks there, you see, November 14th and 15th. And we evolved our presentation from just looking at posters. Last year we did one just on posters, basically. We're going to change that up a little bit to focus on posters, the papers that you maybe do about that time as well. Speaking in front of crowds, putting together speeches and whatnot. So all about presenting everything that we've done through this research cycle. So let's look at what we're going to do today. We'll recognize the importance of exploratory searching. I'd like to differentiate that from goal-oriented searching, and we'll talk about that later. You'll see how exploration leads to a solid foundation. The more that we can kind of contextualize and get background for, see the 360 view of the topic that we're looking at, the better we can contribute to it and understand it more fully, I should say. Brainstorm before searching, then gather useful keywords. That is a great step to kind of show us what we already do know on a topic. A lot of times people just start putting in keywords into the search boxes, get frustrated that they're not finding the kinds of information. A lot of times the reason is we haven't just sat down on our own and kind of thought through what we already know and the kinds of information we want to find out about the topic. We're going to refine a research question. Oh, sorry, that had something missing there, but yeah, then we're going to create a plan or a timeline and know how to get help when we run into troubles. So we'll go through those things today. So I'd like to ask people what exactly is going on when we are doing research. I like to think of it, of course, as exploration. We're understanding what the topic is by putting it into some context and trying to get some perspectives. We can never have enough perspectives. We shouldn't believe that we can have enough perspectives. Everybody looks at the world a little differently, and it's advantageous of us to see how people see it. We may be missing something in our experiences that other people have experienced, and we may be able to move further and go more deeply into this research if we have that perspective. This to me is the most important. If you're not following the leads that intrigue you, you're going to have a difficult time doing research. It's not going to stay interesting. This is a creative process, it's a creative endeavor where we are following what intrigues us, and that's going to be what motivates us to dig deeper and to look for gaps in the knowledge base that exist, because they're all over the place. If we're able to kind of get those elements together, we can figure out what we want to say and how we want to say it, and have control over the topic, and at some point become experts in that area. And that's what our goal is. That was meant to frighten you. But wait! Can't do real research without building a knowledge base, so let's figure out what that means. So we have a lot or a little that we know at the beginning. It depends on how that'll limit us or allow us to go higher with our base. So the wider we make our base, the higher we can build, and that's what we want to do. So let's do a little building, see what we can figure out some of this stuff. So there's a little story that I'm going to tell that kind of sets up my research topic. I have a friend. He lives in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He got the idea from, I think it was somebody else, to rent his home out that he owns during the weeks of graduation and Parents Week for the Air Force Academy. The Air Force Academy, if you didn't know, is in Colorado Springs, right near Colorado Springs. And it's quite a big school, and the parents of the students that attend the Air Force Academy are very much encouraged, of course, to go to their kids' graduations, but also these family weeks throughout the time that their students spend there. So the thing that he had learned is that that Airbnb allows you 10 days of renting your own space before you get taxed. So he said, hey, I can take 2-week-long vacations, probably make enough money to pay for the vacations or part of those vacations, and why not, right? I can take vacations, some other folks can come use my house. So he looked into that a little bit. He got so many offers after those weeks. He was having a hard time turning them down because he just felt like, wow, this seems to be taking off. He ended up going to the trouble of actually purchasing a investment property, and he now has his own kind of 1-story downtown apartment, maybe like 2 or 3 bedroom house. And he says it is booked basically every day of the month. He can get it booked almost every day of the month. He ended up being able to make almost 3 times his mortgage on that one property. And when he was telling me all this, I started thinking, wow, I want to do that too. I own a house here. We have definitely things here in Grand Junction that have, they draw crowds, different things through the summer that people might be interested. So I said, hey, why don't we give it a shot? Started thinking about it a little bit more, and I looked into the fact that in some communities there are housing shortages, basically. And these short-term type rental things like Airbnb and another one called VRBO, Vacation Rentals by Owner, they sometimes keep those people who need housing out of the market because, of course, it's more profitable for the homeowner to rent it out short-term than it is to rent it out for like a year lease, basically. So they're able to make more money on it, but they're not at that point any longer serving people that actually live in those communities. They're supporting visitors to those communities. So I got wondering if that was actually something that I wanted to affect in that way. So here I am. I'm developing my topic. You kind of have a background for why I decided it. It's something that interests me. Of course, the dollar signs were the big thing that really interested me. So we're developing our topic. You heard a little bit about my topic. I want to show you a place that you can start learning about some different topics before we go further with my topic, and I kind of give you a few examples of how this is working. If you come to the Colorado Mesa University webpage, and then you were to go up to the library banner link that's right at the top, it will bring you to this main page of the library. And what I'm trying to call out to your attention is the A to Z database link that is straight down there on the bottom under resources. So if you clicked into that, it would bring you into our A to Z database list. So you can see I'm pointing there to the search by databases. But you can also see down to the left a little bit there, we have 161 different databases. You can organize them by subject, and we also give you different ideas of some of the new databases and trial databases you can see over on the right hand side there. So all of these databases have explanations of the kinds of information that they house. The two that we're going to look at are ways, kind of like hot topic type databases that can help you think through your topic a little bit. And if you're going to be in a specific subject area, let's say nursing or engineering, you can also go into the subject areas, or into the subject, all subjects field there to the left, look for those specific disciplines, and we'll give you recommendations on databases that house information most likely for that discipline. We're going to be looking for one called CQ Researcher to begin with, and I'm going to just take you into that. When you search there, you'll see now I have my CQ Researcher link. It says it's an index with full text to in-depth studies on current and controversial issues from 1991 to current. You can see there's only 5 users that are able to use it at a time. Just be aware of that in case it's not letting you in. It may be because of that. Maybe because of that. This is CQ Researcher. I think it's a really interesting and useful resource. Every week they come out with a featured report. This one you can see is on national debt. Do rising annual deficits threaten the U.S. economy is what that topic is about. I'm going to click on it and actually take you into a live demo of it real quickly. Okay, so here is this week's CQ Researcher. The topic has changed. It's medical breakthroughs. Can regulators and ethicists keep up with advances? If I go into this, you're going to see it's quite a long report, but I'll show you all the great features that it has and how you can start exploring a topic. And there's ways to search, of course, for topics, and you can also browse topics. We'll look at that in just a second. But you can see what they have here. They have a quick introduction. They have an overview. What I like about when you get into this is you'll see the citations, and basically they will take you out directly to those articles where that are being mentioned in that different part. So you can see a lot of different things here. So great ways to kind of keep moving forward and finding new resources to use on your topic. They have great different images and graphs, statistics, tables that you'll see. So a really great way to get a lot of quick information and to really understand your topic fully. So let me just go down a little bit. You can see we get into the backgrounds. And just going to keep going, the current situation. So you can see these are all listed here. You can get into many of these. One thing that's really great is the pro-con. So what happens is, again, they take that question, something similar to that first question, but this one is the pro-con. Should Americans fear genetic engineering of human embryos? This person is in agreement with that. This person does not agree with that. Amy Webb would get the first chance to kind of talk a little bit about her opinion on that question. Then this person, the con, Arthur Kaplan, would actually get to read that Amy's post before getting to write his piece, and he can kind of counter some of the things that he's seeing in there. So it's kind of a cool thing. Now there's many different things within here. I also like the chronology of the topic, so you can see it just quickly gets you at a bunch of different aspects of the topic. So some of these things might resonate to you, and you might go further based off of what you're seeing there. Another way to use it is to browse by topics. Let's say we could go to health, see many more subtopics, hospitals, let's say, and then you'll get even the titles now of these different things. So there are short reports. They're going to be similar, but they definitely will be shorter. But we can go into healthcare reform, and now you can see here's a little bit of an article. Not as long as the other ones, but still great information, lots of sources that you can use, and just a wealth of information here. So those are really great. There's another one that you can use, and it's called opposing viewpoints in context. Very similar, has lots of topics that organized by topics, and so you can kind of delve in that way as well. And here is opposing viewpoints. This is what the page looks like. You would find it the same way as we found the CQ Researcher, just by searching it, now that you know that it's called opposing viewpoints. So here's my topic, Airbnb and its effect on affordable housing. I wanted to make that into a question So here we have it. How do short-term rentals affect the availability of affordable housing? That's my topic. Let's see how we can explore that a little bit. First of all, we have the term short-term rentals, right? So that's going to be a keyword that we can use. I want to search around for things that are similar but use different words to say that same thing. Again, I could use the words Airbnb. I could use the word VRBO, which is not really a word, but I could use that as a search. I could use short-term rentals, of course, and anything else that's similar that means the same thing but just has different words to it. The other big topic in this question is affordable housing, and there's a few things that I need to figure out about affordable housing, so we could use that too. What does that mean? So let's try to figure out what it is that we already know. And this is where we're going to start brainstorming. So we're kind of moving on. Although we still are topic, developing our topic, we're brainstorming to develop it more and kind of refine it. What is this? www, however many H, whatever. It is the journalistic questions, right? Who, what, when, where, why, how. So, who does this affect? For my question, what might that be? I'm going to take you out here for just a second, and I've got a little word cloud here. Thought that we could use. So maybe what I'll do quickly is write that too. Who does this affect? Great. Now we've got a question. What else could we say about a who? What's another who question? Who are the types of people who may, let's see, own the homes that would then be short-term rentals, right? All these little questions that can help you orient yourself. What constitutes affordable housing? I kind of need to do some sort of defining there, don't I? So let's go back to my word cloud. I'm going to say, what constitutes affordable housing? Question mark. So, gaining context here a little bit. Oops, didn't need to do that. Sorry, let me get rid of that. So we could ask other what questions. When was Airbnb founded? Yeah, that'll help me understand when this phenomena began. And maybe we could look longitudinally to see how has affordable housing been affected from the time Airbnb was founded. Something like that. Where is affordable housing most scarce? Why? Why do short-term rentals bring in more money than long-term rentals? Well, it's pretty obvious. You can charge more by the day than you can by the month. So I sort of have that answered. But, there may be other effects and things that I want to keep my eyes on as I'm doing my reading, as I'm pulling in resources and reading over things. These are things that may get answered in a more clear way or in a fuller way. And here's a how question. On average, how many short-term rentals exist compared to long-term leases? Again, all these things might need other context, right? Am I talking about nationally? Am I talking about international? Am I talking about the state of Colorado? Am I talking about just the Grand Valley? So many different ways to kind of scope the question as well. But now you can see we're getting somewhere. Our base of knowledge is widening, and I haven't even done a search yet. So when we come back to maybe this list, and of course I didn't put all those different things in, but you can see how I would maybe just add a how question here, a when question here, maybe another what question over here, so on and so forth. As I do this, I'm starting to get myself a few different keywords, right? Again, I had short-term rentals. I could also say, okay, those short-term rentals are called Airbnbs. They're also called, like I said before, VRBO is another company that does that. So I'm starting to amass a number of different keywords that I can use in my searches to then refine and answer these questions that are, again, right, they're sub-questions of my main question, but they're going to help me to, again, contextualize, give myself perspective on my topic as a whole. So now we can take some of those keywords and we can play around with them. We can do some searches. So let's try that. So we're going to be testing now. So again, come into the main Colorado Mesa site, click up on the library tab, brings you into the library, and you now have this one search. That's going to be a great place to start. Again, if you know that you need a book, you can go into the books and media. That'll change the search box. If you know you need an article in a specific database, you can click on the articles. It'll take you to different options for that. And if you know the particular journal you're after, you can find it there too. But we're going to start with the one search because I don't know where to start. So let's give it a shot. All right. So to begin, I like to start pretty big. Throw yourself a big wide net to begin if you don't know where you're going with anything. This allows you to see just what exists. Let's just throw in Airbnb and see what happens. Now, I get into the one search, and I can see I have been given 14,929 different resources. Seems a little bit high for what I'm needing right now. I don't think I've had the time for 14,000 articles today. So we're going to play around with that to minimize that, take out things that are either redundant or irrelevant to our search. But check this out. There's a research starter, and specifically on Airbnb. So right here, a lot of my whens and wheres might be answered in the history of Airbnb. A little bit about the business model. Okay, great. I need some context to understand how it works. Oh, there's some controversies. That seems like that could be good to read, since what I'm talking about is basically a controversy. It is saying, or my thought is, my theory is that short-term rentals kick people out who need the housing more than the vacationers, basically. Again, it's always going to change depending on the area you live in. Do you live in Moab? Yeah, you might have more people visiting you than visitors, tourists coming to Moab than you might in Grand Junction. Sure, we get a lot too, but it's going to be a different market at that point, and things are going to be affected a little bit differently. So keep that in mind. But anyways, controversies. Then you get a great bibliography here as well. So if you see some of the things in here, they're going to point you straight out, and you can see most of these just have web pages that you can just copy and paste the URL, put it into your search box, and find these, hopefully. Some of these links may not continue to be active, but if we have titles, if we know who created some of these things, we have other ways that we can find those again. So anyways, just wanted to show you that research starter. Let me go back now. Great. So what I'm seeing now are a bunch of different titles related to Airbnb. So a study of Airbnb use, behavior in the sharing economy. I just like to start with titles. Let's read a few and see what's making sense, what's not. The eruption of Airbnb and its effects on hotel profitability, an analysis of Barcelona's hotel sector. They're talking about hotels there. That's not what I was talking about. So I'm going to come back into my thing here. I'm going to kind of make a little box here just to remind myself that I am going to not include hotels. Not interested. Doesn't have to do with short-term rentals. Well, it does, but it's affecting hotels differently, and I don't want that, so I'm going to take that out. So what I can do in here is I can come over, and I can say not hotels, but I can keep my Airbnb in there, and you can see how it populates these other things here. Hotels and hospitality. Sure, it could be useful there, but I'm just going to leave it to hotels in general. So let's say we have close to 15,000 before. Yay, now we have close to 12,000. So about 3,000 were taken out just in using hotels. So that's good. That helps us drill down a little deeper. Now, winning the battle, losing the war. European cities fight Airbnb. Okay, that might have something interesting. Let me go in and let me just take a look real quick. Number of things. Of course, your author, your source is coming from the George Washington International Law Review, so obviously it's going to have something to do with law and regulations. The subject terms can be very helpful for you. Sharing economy. That's one that I hadn't used yet. I was using a few others, right? Short-term rentals. What if we take this over here? It's going to be another sorry, it can be another useful keyword for me as I go forward. Tourism, law and legislation, tourists, attitudes, legislation. Okay, some of these aren't going to be as useful for me, but here this abstract is going to give me a summary of that paper, and if I decide that what this summary is telling me is going to be useful for me, I can save this paper a number of ways. I can come over here, I can click on the permalink. It now gives me this link here that is going to be a permanent stable URL that I could just throw into a Word document and save all of them there. That way I know I can come back to this title in the future if I don't want to print it out or anything like that. So that's one way. Another way is you could email this particular article to yourself. It doesn't need to come into your Colorado Mesa email. It can go to a Gmail account. And what I really like about it is you can actually bring in your citation as well. So if you're going to be needing it in APA, go ahead and type that in there. It's going to bring the article as a PDF. You send it to yourself, and it's going to be in your inbox. You can always go back to your inbox and know that the articles that you've saved are in one place there. And finally, another way you can do this is if I came back out to the results list, I could just stay here and not even worry about anything but the titles at this point. So I'm going to use this over here to start putting things into a folder. Now this folder is only going to be useful for you as one time unless you create an account and you sign in up through EBSCO databases. I don't always recommend that. I've had some troubles in the past with it myself. I just like to do this one time, this one search and make sure that I then email the whole folder to myself. So let me show you. I can come through, I could read some more, I could hit this one. I'm not reading these very closely right now, but yes, that one looks great. Sure, let's take that one and that one. And, ooh, here's a perfect one. So anyways, I've got a number of different articles now. I can come over to my folder. Click on the folder view. You can see they all exist in here now. What I would do is I could select all of them, and again, email all of those to you at once. Looks a little bit different here, but it's basically doing the same thing. Just enter in an email address. Again, it has citation formats you can include with it. Things are great. Word of advice, though, be sure to edit your citations that come in these forms like this. They tend to be pretty close, but they also tend to be often off enough that it's noticeable, and you need to edit those a little bit. So just be aware of that. Great. So just through looking at titles, I haven't done a lot, but I got a few things, right? I got this sharing economy idea. I found out that I'm not interested in hotels, so I can change that a little bit. So these give me more options. They give me more next steps, basically, to do my research. And again, throughout this whole process, you want to make sure that you're following the things that are just of interest to you. If you are bored reading titles on your topic, it just means that you probably don't, there probably doesn't have something that's useful for you. You're going to know when things are hitting on that area of intrigue within your life, and that's something only you can tell. I'm not going to be able to tell what intrigues you. Of course, maybe if I got to know you, I might be able to have a better sense, but yeah, you know where you want to go, and you know the things that are interesting to you, and yeah. So let's get back into the PowerPoint here. So these are important questions. Every time you see something, you need to ask of the content within it, what does it show, prove, or explain about my thesis or my research question? Always needs to, if you're just reading something but it doesn't do any of these things for you, where are you getting? Are you getting anywhere with it? Oh, not always. Maybe you're getting somewhere, but this is very important to answer. You have to have things that are showing, proving, or explaining something about your theory, your thesis, or your research question. See, you're learning, things are coming more into focus, and finally start to build up. You start to find the things that are answering the question in a real serious way. But of course, there's a caveat, isn't there? Cracks will always develop. And there's a number of ways you could handle them. And here we do some refining. And again, like I said, there's been refining happening throughout this process, but this is a little bit more refining here. This is a poem, believe it or not, so bear with me, and I apologize if it is so bad that it makes you slap your head, because I'm kind of feeling like I might. Or that crack may just in fact set you on a fresh tack, Jack. Again, my apologies for the awful poetry. Another thing you can do is you can fill in that crack by answering a question that that came up when you found that crack in your evidence. So basically, that's all to say, if you find out something that kind of contradicts your question or sets you off in another direction, don't hesitate to change your question. It's perfectly fine. I think sometimes people get hung up in the fact that they have a question that they're starting on. Sometimes their professors may want them to kind of focus on that. But being too rigid in a question is sometimes going to lead you to frustrations. You're going to find something out. It's not going to let you move past what your question was. So just change it. It's perfectly fine to change and refine your question. That's how we create new knowledge, is we find out what's out there, and that changes how we look at the world and that particular topic. But like I said, you can also just refine it a little bit. You don't have to change it completely. And that's how filling in those gaps helps strengthen what it is that you're looking into. So, what plan do we have? Here are a couple different resources that I think are really, really useful, and I think they're really cool. There's these research paper planners. So one of them was created by the University of Minnesota, and the one that they created was then kind of up to the ante a little bit, I think, and the Baylor folks, they created one based off of that one, but it's got a few refinements. But let me show you the University of Minnesota's first. What I think is really great is that there is this, you can say that you're doing a research paper, you're preparing a speech, or you're doing a lab report. If you're a graduate student, you may be working on a dissertation. It has a whole dissertation calculator as well. A little bit more complex there, but we're talking about research papers, so let's go into that one. You'll see the starting date is today. I'm making this video on the 15th of September. The due date, let's just, for the heck of it, say, oh, no, it isn't 2017, but let's go, to December, the end of the semester. Let's say the 7th of September is when my paper is due. And this is going to give me a paced out kind of timeline for my paper. And I love this because you can see by the 21st, so that's another week, I need to understand my assignment, select and focus my topic. I'm kind of on the way to that already, so that's great. But you can see there's some resources. Read through and understand your assignment. Always a good idea. Select a workable topic. Cool. That's something that that I'm kind of working on, right, with my Airbnb question. Try a specialized encyclopedia. So they're giving you ways to get started and get this background information. You can see the percentage of time spent on this step will be 8% of the total time. And it keeps going. And I really like how this works. Look at this. 25% of your time should be spent critically reading and evaluating sources. Absolutely. Right now we're just gathering things. We haven't started reading them and really getting a sense of what's going on in the research yet. So you'll see these change quite a bit. Anyways, really cool resource. I really recommend that you try those. And then the other one is Baylor's. So they, like I said, kind of base theirs off of the University of Minnesota ones. They even talk about it here. But here's the research paper planner timeline. So again, the date is the 15th. I would like this to be turned in on the 8th, and I schedule my paper process. Basically doing the exact same thing here, right? Understand the assignment, where you start. So I've got to the 18th. I've got 3 days before I better understand my assignment. Take the time to read it. Read it once one day, read it a second time another day, and read it a third time a third day. You can't be certain enough of the exact deliverables on some of these assignments. You might pick up something you didn't read the second time that you find the third time, right? So be certain that you're understanding everything that's asked of you in those assignments. And it just takes you through these other steps. So I think these are really useful. I think it's a great way to pace yourself, especially if you've got more than one of these to work on at a time. And yeah, tell me what you think of those. Oops, sorry. Also, I had created another research guide that was based on different free tools that you can use throughout the research process. So let me just take you into that so you can see it. This was a research workshop I did last year. And one of the first things we talked about in this information planning stage is using a tool like Trello. I use it every day. I do a lot with it. So I advocate for it, but there's other tools similar to it, and I mentioned those over here. So you can come in here, you can get a sense of what it is that Trello does, how it can be useful planning your research and getting yourself a timeline set up so that you can kind of do this, what I like to call like go into robot mode. Sorry, I should take that back. You got to be, first of all, human being, and you got to look at all the things you needed to do, when they're going to be due, the timelines for all these things, kind of make your plan so that you then can go into robot mode and just set yourself to those tasks. If you do that, you're going to just kind of, the work will kind of do itself. Of course, you have to do it, but it kind of falls into place really well. So anyways, just wanted to show you this guide as a way that you can see a few things. I like some of these examples that they use, so let me maybe take one just so you see what Trello does. And now this is one that they created, so this isn't what my boards tend to look like, but what they do is you have this full board. The whole board is called the Student Research Project Board. You have these different lists. Basically, each one of these is a different list, and each list can have different cards. So this card has a number of things in it. It opened up, it gave me a description, and there are a few attachments that you can place into it. You can do all sorts of other things. You can subscribe to it, so if somebody else is working in here, you'll get a notification anytime they do something or complete an activity or something like that. You can also make checklists within here. I don't think I see any now. No, I don't. But what I also like is it shows you the activity. So if you're just trying to remember what steps you took, if you're trying to do some reflection on the process you took, you can come back and look at the steps that you took when you were working on the project. So that's kind of cool. And then each one of these, you can add more cards into each list. So here's the research one. You can see they put a due date. They labeled it for a certain color. They definitely put some different attachments in. So it's kind of cool. You can do a lot in here. It kind of becomes your, I call it my motherboard for all the work that I try to do. So that's a little bit about Trello. So I would ask you what questions you have, but you're not live with me to answer them. So I would say that you can absolutely get in touch with me. My contact information is on the last slide here, so you'll be able to see how to do that. But think of questions you have, and I would love to work with you all and talk to you more about this. Of course, I'd love to have you all come to the next workshop so we can kind of build on what our plan was and start working on evaluating some things. So the next research workshop will be called Fact or Fallacy. And like I said, it's kind of based off of just evaluating information. It came from our fake news workshop that we did last year, but we're going to take it a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about things as a whole and give you really great ways that you can learn to get better at evaluating information. So here is a way, and it's a page that we have. It's the Ask a Librarian page under Research Resources. It gives you a number of ways that you can chat with us or talk to us about your research and get some help. You can use the chat widget. It's over on the right over here. And so you can just chat in with us. We staff that. You can stop by the research desk, and we have research hours here, open just about the same as the hours of the library are. You can get in touch with us by phone. You can send us an email. A lot of different ways you can get in touch with us. So again, thank you for being here. You'll see my email address down here at the bottom and my telephone number. And please feel free to get in touch with me if you have other questions or other concerns or just want to chat a little bit about your research, and I'm more than happy to do that. So thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.